behalf of the League of Women Voters of Berkeley Heights, New Providence, and Summit, I'm pleased to welcome you to our virtual forum for Berkeley Heights Township Council. My name is Marlene Sincaglia, and I am the program chair of this league. The League of Women Voters of New Jersey is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Empowering voters and defending democracy is our message. Elections and voting are core concerns for the League of Women Voters. We are committed to providing fact-based information about issues and positions candidates take on those issues to help voters make their own decision and participate in the electoral process. We envision a democracy where everyone has the right, the knowledge, the confidence, and the opportunity to participate. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or edited footage from this forum on the web, social media, cable, or television is not authorized by the League of Women Voters. Due to our nonpartisan policy, residents should view this recording in its entirety. Membership in the League is open to people 16 or older of all gender identities. With 100 years of experience, the League is one of America's oldest and most trusted civic nonprofit organizations. We encourage everyone to go to Vote 411, a one-stop site for information on all aspects of voting in New Jersey, with information about the candidates up and down the ballot. We are very pleased here in Berkeley Heights that all the candidates did respond to the invitation to participate in Vote 411. This forum is being live streamed on the LWV BHNPS YouTube channel, and it's available there to be viewed afterwards, as well as on our website, lwvbhnps.org. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Evelyn Murphy from the League of Women Voters of Southern Monmouth County.
Thank you, Marlene. Good evening to our audience. We are here tonight to help you learn about your choices in the upcoming election for Berkeley Heights Township Council. We have 4 candidates from 2 parties competing for 2 open seats. The winning candidates will serve a 3-year term. I will introduce the candidates to you now in the order they are listed on your ballot. Candidates, as I say your name, please wave and say hello. The Democrats are in column A on your ballot. We have Stephen Yellen.
Hello.
And Alvaro Medeiros.
Hi.
And the Republicans are in column B on your ballot. They are John Foster.
Evening.
And Paul Donnelly.
Hello.
And as always, voters may select any 2 of the candidates. Now let's review the format for the evening. We begin with opening statements. Each candidate will speak for up to 2 minutes. Then we move into questions. We aren't able to take questions during the forum as we would when we meet in person, so voters have submitted excellent, thoughtful questions in advance. We have chosen a group of questions covering a range of topics. Each candidate has 1 minute to answer each question. Anyone may pass on a question if they choose. The candidates will focus on policy positions and avoid personal attacks. Each candidate can offer a 30-second rebuttal on any question if they choose. We end with the candidates making closing statements of up to 1.5 minutes each. The order in which the candidates are speaking has been determined earlier by a random draw. And now let's talk about our timekeeper. Marlene is serving as our timekeeper tonight. As the candidates speak, she will let them know when 30 seconds remain on the clock by raising a yellow card, and it'll look like this. When the speaker's time is up, so thank you, Marlene. When the speaker's time is up, Marlene will raise her red card. Candidates, when a red card appears, please finish your sentence and stop as soon as possible. Okay, thank you. Now we can begin with candidate opening statements. The first speaker tonight will be Mr. Medeiros.
Thank you, and good evening, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. I'm a candidate for re-election to the Township Council because I'm proud of what Stephen Yellen and I, along with Mayor Devaney, have accomplished during the last 3 years. I want an opportunity to continue to work in a bipartisan manner to deliver on fiscal responsibility, an improved and resilient infrastructure, and an open and inclusionary governing body. I'm a 27-year resident of the township. I retired at the end of 2019 after a long business career ending with AT&T. I accumulated over 37 years experience in administration of both small and large businesses. My wife Amalia and I raised 2 kids educated in our excellent public school system, and I have been a frequent volunteer in this township with the Boy Scouts, with the GL Marching Band, and I was a member of the Berkeley Heights Environmental Commission. I'm an advocate of public leadership because decisions made by leaders have considerable impact on us all, and because government can be a force for good. What we accomplish as elected leaders are proof of this. Our administration has been willing to do the hard work, act transparently, and hear differing viewpoints. Thanks to our focus on fiscal responsibility, we have increased our surplus funds by over $1 million during each of the last 3 years. Moody's Investor Services gave Berkeley Heights a rating of AA1 this past June, which means our cost of borrowing is lower and we can earn a premium when we sell bonds. That report clearly states that the financial position of our township has improved since our new management team was established in fiscal 2019. We have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in fixing fundamental weaknesses. We are pursuing federal government aid to fix serious deficiencies in our stormwater drainage systems that have been neglected for many years. We are engineering the paving of roadways in town so that they will last and don't need to be repaved each year. We created 4 new all-volunteer committees aimed at helping seniors, helping businesses in town, securing grants to offset our costs, and preserving our historic legacy. I'm particularly proud of our outreach to seniors. For far too long, many of our township seniors have felt forgotten and neglected, as if they were not an important part of our community. That's simply not right. We have increased our communication with our seniors, increased our programming and other activities that show our seniors that Berkeley Heights is a town in which they can age in place and truly be valued. We have worked hard to make Berkeley Heights better together and are convinced that if elected, we can continue to deliver on that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medeiros. The next speaking will be Mr. Donnelly.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's debate and to everyone watching. My name is Paul Donnelly, and my wife Inga and I chose Berkeley Heights over 15 years ago. We now have 2 kids, one's at GL, the other's at Columbia. Berkeley Heights has been a great place to raise a family. We've made many friends. We've seen many exciting developments over the years. I would love to see Berkeley Heights continue to improve, which is why I'm here today. My family has always been hardworking and instilled a strong work ethic in me. So my father was a Marine and a successful businessman. My mother came from a family of hotels and restaurants, many of them famous restaurants in New York City. My experience is in the life science and healthcare industry, where I currently head up global strategy for an e-clinical technology company. I juggle multiple projects and consistently develop and execute strategic plans, manage budgets, and make sure to bring them over the line. I'm here now to lend my experiences and skills for the betterment of Berkeley Heights. I plan on working with the people to execute upon projects that will move Berkeley Heights forward. For me, this is less about politics, and it's more about how we can have a better community for our families. So improvements to infrastructure, keeping it affordable, embracing diversity, positioning Berkeley Heights for the future. These are my priorities. I grew up in Rivervale, a small town in Bergen County. When I moved to Berkeley Heights, it felt very similar as where I grew up, which is really what attracted me here. Some of the challenges we currently face as we grow as a community is to make sure that we're maximizing our resources to make a better downtown that can take us into this next stage of Berkeley Heights growth, while maintaining, a little essence of suburbia, allowing for diversity and inclusion, which brings strong communities and businesses, and removes the red tape and politics that we continuously see. We've seen many exciting improvements between the new sidewalks, a new municipal building, many other long overdue projects. We want this town to attract businesses and people from surrounding towns to frequent them instead of empty storefronts. So continuously improving and helping make that happen is my main priority. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion and finding ways to work together to make Berkeley Heights a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Next speaking is Mr. Foster.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the candidate debate and to all of you watching from your homes. My name is John Foster, and my wife Donna and I chose Berkeley Heights 21 years ago to raise our family. We love this town. I try to give back as much as I can. Born in Irvington and raised in Union, I have a unique understanding on how to find common purpose regardless of your background. I have 3 kids. My youngest son is a sophomore at Governor Livingston, and my 2 daughters also graduated from Governor Livingston and now attend college. Coming from a family of public servants, mostly police officers, I've always been motivated to give back to my community. Since my kids were small, I've been on the PTO of Mary Kay McMillan, Thomas P. Hughes, Columbia Middle School, Governor Livingston, and now I'm the president of the Governor Livingston Band Parent Association. You may also know me as Coach John from my years of coaching my 2 daughters and son at Pierre Lacrosse, cross country, and the Berkeley Heights Youth Soccer Club. As a retired police officer of 28 years, I was often faced with life and death situations. I pride myself in having a gift of remaining calm in high pressure situations. I'm highly skilled at being able to listen and understand an issue and viewpoints before reacting. I've been a leader in my professional and personal life, serving as president of the PBA for 3 years. I am currently a paraprofessional at Governor Livingston High School, helping the children with special needs to flourish. My career as a police officer and paraprofessional has made me an expert in creating positive relationships with colleagues and residents. I hold many certifications, such as first responder, critical incident management, cybercrime investigations, and drug recognition expert, which will be an asset to the town council as a member with new state laws of recreational drugs and more extreme weather and more severe illnesses coming. I have years of experience being trained to go into situations without bias. You cannot honestly assess your situation if you come into it with bias or your own agenda. I'm ready to roll my sleeves to take real action. I'm honored to be here tonight to answer your questions because electing members of town council is your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Our last opening statement will be by Mr. Yellen.
Good evening. Before I begin, I'd like us to remember the 7 residents of Berkeley Heights we have lost in the COVID-19 pandemic, and all those still struggling in the wake of Hurricane Ida. You know, it's times like these that make me grateful to have the privilege of serving you on the Township Council, because it shows that Berkeley Heights is better when we are together. My name is Stephen Yellen, and I'm proud to be giving back to the town I was born and raised in. I'm now living with my fiancée, Dana. I work in public relations, and I'm the only council member with a master's degree in communications. Together with Mayor Angie Devaney and with Alvaro Medeiros, I was elected in 2018 because you believe local government could be managed better than by those who have managed it for years. You were right. Our record speaks for itself. We improved our town's fiscal situation with an upgraded bond rating from Moody's and a 0% tax increase in 2020. We provided critical support for residents and small businesses alike during the pandemic. We greatly increased funding for repairing roads, water pipelines, catch basins, sewers, all this and much more besides. I'm also proud of my personal accomplishments in office. I wrote the law to create smoke-free zones in our town, including barring cannabis and tobacco from being smoked outside public schools, in parks, and sports fields. I fought along with Alvaro to restore budget cuts to our first responders, and we won that fight. I fought for permanent funding for our Veterans Memorial for the first time. I won that fight. And I sponsored the creation of the Historic Preservation Committee to begin restoring the Lord Museum. We're winning that fight too. You and I, we've been through an awful lot together. We're not yet out of the woods. But through it all, Berkeley Heights government has been doing better, doing more, and helping us all move forward together. And all of it with a bipartisan council. Our competitors represent a turning back to the days of one-party government. And that's not a road we need to travel on again. So it's time to keep moving forward by voting for council members who will ensure everyone's voice is heard. And that's what Alvaro and I will continue to do if you re-elect us, because you deserve nothing less. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. Now we're going to turn to the questions. The first question, the first person to answer it is going to be Mr. Medeiros. The question is, what challenges do various groups of residents face in the township? What recommendations do you have to make Berkeley Heights a more welcoming place to live?
Thank you. I think the two groups I think that would probably come to mind when I think of challenges or groups of individuals that are challenged in our township. First one is seniors. As I mentioned earlier, we've been working with seniors. I think the majority of our, I should say 25% of our populace today is over the age of 65, and that's going to continue to grow. Their needs are not being met today. We've been working hard to achieve that. And that as that population grows, we need to focus on them. The other group I would say is our minorities. Our township is increasingly becoming diverse, and the more diverse, and yet there's a reaction to it, a negative reaction that we've seen time and again with racial attacks from the public in town, and that's something that we need to get our hands around. We need to figure out a way to stop that and minimize it.
Thank you. Mr. Donnelly, if you would answer this next.
Sure. So the challenges and recommendations to make it a more welcoming place, I think it's an important topic. So thank you for asking. So my wife comes from a different country, so I know firsthand some of the struggles that folks face, especially outsiders. Oftentimes there's miscommunications. People don't understand their intent. They don't get to know the person better. They may push them away from wanting to participate. So we need to keep working on this. Small things can help you feel more embraced in the community, like maybe a welcome packet in the town, when you first move in, tells you a little bit about the activities for kids, coupons to local stores and restaurants. There are many times that I find myself learning about activities and things that are happening until after the fact. So we can always make an effort to get more residents involved in local activities.
Thank you. Next to answer this, Mr. Foster.
Thank you. I have to agree with Mr. Donnelly, first of all, with welcoming the people into town. Send them a welcome letter. Maybe set up a committee with the township council or somebody in the districts that will go out and reach out to people who are new in the town. Where do you find the services? Where do you find town hall? Who's your elected officials? Where do they come from? Where are they at? Get some phone numbers. Police department, fire department, first aid squad, okay? As the president of the Government Livingston Band Parent Association, we have what we call a buddy system. The current band parents take on new band parents and they give them all this information. Whatever they need going forward, they have somebody to reach out to and somebody they can talk to and find out the information. And then they soon become the older band parents that bring new band parents in, and it just recycles itself. So I can see that happening. A welcome letter to the people in town, it's a great idea.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Mr. Yellen.
Well, I happen to think that that idea is excellent because in fact, the township's already doing it. Whenever a new business comes into town, they receive that packet of information from the township. And when residents come to town, like Dana and I did, we moved into our new home, we received a magnet for our refrigerator with phone numbers to call and who to reach out to at town hall. And we've had a wonderful welcome from our neighbors as well, who've helped point us in things we didn't know about. So I think we're already doing a great job in that regard. But I certainly agree with Alvaro that there are two critical areas of our community that we have been and need to continue to do more to ensure they feel included and valued in our community. We've been doing more to help our senior citizens with a senior newsletter, with events for our seniors like a regular bingo game, for example, which Alvaro volunteers at. And we need to do more of those things so that people feel comfortable living here for the whole of their lives. For all those who are coming here who may feel they are not welcome or may feel like they don't have a voice, you have one in this governing body. You have one in this administration. We've been working to include people with things like the Mayor's Task Force on Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Berkeley Heights. We've marched together,
Thank you, Mr. Yellen.
And we'll continue to do more to make sure everyone feels welcomed here.
Thank you. Please try to keep your responses in the time. Does anyone have anything additional they want to say in a 30-second rebuttal? Terrific. There's a lot of agreement on that. Question number 2, and this is going to go first to Mr. Foster. Please discuss the level of communication between town government and its citizens over the last few years and up through today. Do you believe we should continue to engage residents in township meetings via Zoom when in-person meetings return?
No, I don't believe Zoom meetings should be part of the thing. You want to talk to your town council. You want to be part of the town. You want to come and see them and speak to them. That's how you can engage the people and you can be part of the people. If you're doing this on Zoom, and I know we're doing this on Zoom now due to the fact that we're with the COVID situation, but it's not as personal. You want to be personal with the people that are in town and the communications that they have. They're going to want to know who to talk to, and they want to see the person they're talking to. Seeing somebody on a little square about this big. I mean, I've done this at the high school, and when we were hybrid or even out altogether, and kids just weren't engaging. So if they're not engaging in it, how are you going to get the public to engage in it? You want your people who you're representing to know who you are and come and talk to you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Now, Mr. Medeiros.
Just to talk about the evolution of communications since our administration took over, we were elected. We were very proud of our initiative, our efforts in doing and achieving greater communication on one of our goals. I think we've increased access. The number of channels that we utilize is a lot greater, focused on on different groups. For example, the mayor has a robocall every week, which is very much appreciated by the seniors. And to just the second question about Zoom meetings, while the town council meeting in person is ideal, and I can't wait till we get back to that. I think there's a lot of people that we've seen that are able to join meetings because they aren't always able to make it to the town council meetings. And a live stream isn't quite the same thing as being able to raise a question and ask it. I don't know how we're going to do that technically, but I would like for us to explore that and figure out a way to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen, your response to that question.
So a little while ago, the Board of Education has received criticism from our residents because they went back to in-person meetings, but didn't provide any outlet at all for them to have access to the meeting online while it was going on. You know, most of us, we work. We come home after a long day. We have families. We have kids. Most of us don't have time to go to an in-person meeting. So as much as I love everyone to come in person to council meetings, historically, they don't. So not only do we need to make sure we have some option to enable residents to participate in town government meetings when they return to being in person, but we also need to have our elected officials go out to the residents. And that's what Alva and I have been doing. With our improved communications, we've also had massive expanded e-news list with over 100% growth, I believe, during the time I was on the communications committee. But it also means going out and talking to the residents where you are, listening to you where you are. In the aftermath of Ida, Alva and I went to some of the neighborhoods that were hit hardest by the hurricane. We went and we talked to the neighbors. We tried to see what we could do to help. We made sure they knew their elected officials were there and that we had your back. And we'll keep doing things like that. We'll look to have more open events like a monthly meet and greet with your councilman at town hall and throughout the communities as well, because that's the kind of communication between us and with you, not you coming to us.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. And Mr. Donnelly, your response.
Sure. So, I agree to disagree on some of this. So, while Zooms are great, I think it helps with, a couple of things. So it helps to be inclusive. So there may be people that just can't make it to these meetings. There could be elders, handicapped that can't make it, that want access, they want to see this. So participation in a Zoom is great for those folks. But in light of a live meeting, live meetings are always great. I mean, when I'm doing my job in business, I get a lot more done in a live meeting and it's a lot more effective. You get that personal effect. So, if you can go out, have a cup of coffee with folks in the community, meet, at a town meeting, things like that, I think that's great. But we also have to be inclusive and think about those folks that just can't make it. And, the Zoom meetings are great for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Does anyone have anything additional they'd like to add? Mr. Yellen, a 30-second.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Murphy. I just wanted to also point out that some of the other communications advances we've had is to help provide more information to the residents. Many of them have seen the fantastic weekly Happening in the Heights video, with our administrator, Liza Viana, doing a great job talking about upcoming events and some funny skits too. I took part in one of them recently with her and former Councilwoman Susan Pogue to talk about the work we're doing in Littell Lord, for example. And we've been able to raise thousands of dollars from the community to restore Littell Lord with the help of videos like that. So we're going to keep having all these different faceted communications efforts with this administration. And you can bet Alva and I will continue to push on those things if we're reelected.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. Anyone else who'd like to say something more? Okay, let's move on to another topic area. Berkeley Heights has seen an increase in signs being stolen, as well as graffiti in parks and recreation buildings. What suggestions do you have to ensure that our community tackles this crime increase? How would you go about implementing your plan? And we'll give that question first to Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, sure. So, I think, well, thank you for your question, first of all. I think a lot of this stuff happens with teenagers, and I think it comes down to just not enough activities for these teenagers in our town. So, my daughter always complains that there's not a lot to do. She doesn't want to just hang around Snyder Park with little, if any, supervision over there. So we need something engaging. I would work with the YMCA to host more teen events and activities. My family's very active at the Y, so we know the leadership. We could work as a team to partner with them in some way, shape, or form. As a kid, I wish there were more activities for me. I mean, I used to hang around town, go to the pizza place, play video games, but that's really not an effective way that we should be doing this for our families in town. We need some more stuff for them to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Let's go next to Mr. Yellen for that question.
I think it's a bit of an assumption to assume that teenagers or kids are the ones causing the graffiti and other issues. I think we have to consider this as an issue of crime, and to note that we have a fantastic police department with a tremendous police chief, Jason Massimino. And one of the things the chief has been doing with this team is a great deal more emphasis on community policing and relations with the community. And they're able to help implement some of the more needs of talking to residents of all kinds to help promote that kind of safety and security in the community. But it also involves some basic things. With our capital budget, for example, we've been able to finally get new locks on the bathrooms in Lower Columbia Park to prevent some of the graffiti there. We're having increase in the capital budget to make sure we have lights to be turned on and turned off at the tennis courts and other parts of that area to, again, make sure that people know that it's time to go home and to prevent graffiti or other issues like that. So those are the kinds of common sense things that we can do. It's not about saying kids will be kids. It's about ensuring every kid and every family feels safe to live here in Berkeley Heights. That's what Alva and I are committed to doing. It's why we think Berkeley Heights is better together under our leadership.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to Mr. Foster.
Thank you. I'd like first to direct my comments to Mr. Yellen. I was a police officer for 28 years, and I've never chased a middle-aged man out of a bathroom doing graffiti. I've chased kids, idle hands in the devil's workshop. They need more things to do. They need more places to go. The Y, a teen night, the Lifetime, a teen night, something we could pair up with. We need the community to come together, more eyes, see something, say something. Get out there and put signs up. You're being watched. Big Brother's out there, okay? Next, increase patrols in the parks. I know the police department's great. They're great. I've been a police officer. Increase patrols. Get out there. Just make sure you're seen. And you're seen, you won't have any problems.
Thank you. The last person to answer this, Mr. Medeiros.
I agree. I actually agree with Stephen Yellen that it is a matter of policing, and we actually had to spend quite a sum of money to lock the doors, and automatically lock the doors of the bathrooms at Lower Columbia Field. It's a pernicious problem, and I think many of us have addressed the sort of the root causes of it. There is a limited amount of things that children can do in the town. We need a more vibrant downtown. We need better street lighting. But we do need policing. There is no question that patrols and the presence of the police deter that sort of behavior. And we certainly should pursue that goal.
Thank you. Does anyone want to make additional comments in 30 seconds? Mr.
Yeah.
Sorry, was you myself or Mr. Medeiros?
Were you not finished, Mr. Medeiros?
Yeah, I just had one last thing I wanted to say that I want to commend Chief Massimino, who has initiated a community policing event where his team comes out to different neighborhoods and engages with the public there. And that's one of the things that I believe is a way to achieve at least an awareness and some sympathy between the police department and the community to minimize that sort of behavior. So I want to make sure that.
Thank you. And Mr. Yellen, you wanted to take another 30 seconds?
I did. I also want to point out one of our police chief's new initiatives is the Annie Young Academy. And this is a civic service program that is being hosted by the police department for teenagers and youths in our community. I've been very proud to support the chief when he's been working through that idea. It's something that the whole community is very much looking forward to seeing implemented. So it shows again that this administration is doing the kinds of things that we need to do to both A, make our community safer, and B, to ensure our kids have more things to do and enjoy in our town.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants a few extra seconds? Great. So we'll move on to a related question. How can we better support our police, firefighters, and rescue squad in the future? Please be specific. And the first answer on this one is Mr. Yellen, please.
So this is something where Alva and I have been walking the walk. Earlier this year, our town budget was introduced, and it contained some very serious cuts to our first responders, our police, our fire department, all volunteers who run into burning buildings if necessary without being paid a dime, and our rescue squad, who again doesn't get paid for what they do to save lives. Alva and I voted against that introduction because of those cuts. And then what we did is we worked with our Republican colleagues. We found common ground, and we were able to restore most of those cuts. And as a result, we then came together and voted to approve that budget. So we're proud of the fact that we've stood up for our first responders. We've backed it up, we've gotten them the support they need, and we're ready to do more for them in the next 3 years. We want to make sure that we have more support for our police for the community policing efforts that they're doing, and that our firefighters get all the equipment they need, as well as our rescue squad members. I would encourage people to volunteer for the fire department and the rescue squad. Contact them if you haven't thought about doing it before. Berkeley Heights needs incredible people like them, and we're going to keep supporting them.
Thank you. The next person to answer this is Mr. Medeiros.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with Stephen. I'm very proud as well of our performance in supporting our first responders. I do want to highlight that we do have a difficult road ahead of us. We have a fire department that's very young, totally a volunteer fire department, and there's a challenge coming down the road as they leave, and we need to replace them. There's a growing pressure to establish a paid fire department. So that's something that needs to be addressed. Speaking to what Stephen just described as the importance of volunteerism, I think we helped the rescue squad. We joined the rescue squad in trying to help them address their recruiting efforts. And they've been very successful. They've expanded their outreach and have been able to address their shortages. But to the point that Stephen made about our initiatives or efforts to restore the budget for the police department, for the fire department, and for the rescue squad, we made a strong effort in that regard, and we were very, very much behind expanding our police force to its full code authorized size.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Donnelly.
Sure. So, as you know, that I am a newcomer here. I haven't been entrenched in the government. So for me, when I think of the first responders, they have an important job in our community. We need to find ways to support their efforts. So if there's ways that we could find them more money to do things, if they need better equipment, I would look at grants to do that. So try to offset some of their purchases with some grants and, try to find different ways to do that. I might see what our neighboring towns are doing and see how they've been successful, because there's a lot of towns doing a lot of cool things, and we could probably take some good lessons from them. I know the rescue squad in particular does a great job with fundraisers. So we as a community need to help them be as effective as possible. My wife and I also, on occasion, just out of the blue, will make lunch for the police department. We'll bring it down, and they're very appreciated. So, I think if everybody contributes a little bit, I think it means a lot for these first responders. Thank you.
Thank you. Your response, Mr. Foster?
As the only first responder on this panel tonight, I think I am very well versed in this. The first responders need training. They need the community to be behind them. I've been with the PBA for years. We've done charity softball games. We've done Jello wrestling. We've raised money for the fire departments the first aid squad. We also had an initiative where the police department went to the high school and was setting up tents to do fingerprinting for young kids. So they had ID packets with their pictures so the parents could have them. These are the things that bring out into the community. That's what you need. You need the people to know that their first responders are there for them. And that's what we did. And as a first responder, I know because I went out there and I did it.
Thank you. Does anyone have additional information they want to add as a response? Mr. Yellen, 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you. So Mr. Donnelly mentioned grants to support our first responders. In fact, Berkeley Heights has been obtaining a $250,000 state grant, which is the acronym LEAP. So $250,000 grant to fund equipment cuts for our first responders. So we're able to bring in grant money like that to support them, and we're doing it already. Speaking of grants, I should point out one of the great accomplishments of this administration, with Alvaro, myself, and former Councilwoman Susan Pogue, was the creation of the Grants Committee, where our volunteers helped bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Mr. Medeiros.
To add that we've also, among the shared service agreements that we established, was a shared 911 dispatch, which helped our police department focus more on the hard job of policing as opposed to trying to maintain a call response center in a very inefficient way. We're also very proud of our initiative to, as I talked about earlier, the fire department has young residents in the township who are growing older and having to find a place to live. And the mayor's been working with the state government to try to address that problem.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak some more? Mr.
I'd like
Foster.
to. I'd like to address Mr. Medeiros' point about the dispatch, the 911. Why would you take 911 services out of town where the people need it? Who would know more about where they're going? The guy answers the phone. I was there. I was answering the phone, 911. These people knew that I knew where they were. You're sending it to the county. The county has no idea where they are. They're shipping it off to the state police. They're shipping it back to Berkeley Heights on their main line. It doesn't work that way. You get somebody on the phone, you're going to know where they are because you're in the town. I had to respond to calls all the time. And when I worked the desk or when I handled our enforcers program, where we had our dispatch, our guys knew where they were going. The residents knew we were going to show up.
Can I address that?
Thank you. Mr.
Can I
Donnelly,
jump
do
in
you
for
have
1
anything?
second? Yeah, the only thing that I'll say is, this is all about the residents and the community. It's not about the administration. We're regular people trying to do this for the community. So, anything that we could do for the community is what we want to do.
Thank you. Moving to our next question. Businesses have suffered greatly due to COVID. What would you do to improve the environment for our businesses as we emerge from the pandemic? And the first response on this is going to be from Mr. Yellen.
Sure. So before I answer that, let me just quickly point out that the dispatch that Mr. Foster just spoke about was approved unanimously by Republicans as well as Democrats on the Township Council, because we all knew it was the right thing to do for Berkeley Heights and our taxpayers and our first responders. So what we've been doing so far in Berkeley Heights is a number of initiatives since the pandemic broke out. For example, with bipartisan support, have created an ordinance to enable greater dining outside for restaurants in our community. So we've seen the great tents outside with Delicious Heights and other restaurants like that. They've been able to just stay in business in part because we've been able to help them. It also means ensuring they get direction for grants to the Small Business Association, Small Business Administration, through our local, what we call our Berkeley Heights Business and Civic, which is another great local organization that we work with. It also means sometimes certain small acts. Earlier this year, our mayor nominated DeMeo's, fantastic Italian restaurant. My family's been going to it since I was a boy. They were nominated as a Small Business of the Year by Union County.
Thank you, Mr. Yellen. Next is Mr. Foster.
Well, I agree with Mr. Yellen about Restaurant Week, but you can also do more street fairs. You can have it open up. We do the winter walk. You have a street fair like we did, maybe two. Maybe have a summer walk, a spring walk. Let the people come out to the center of town and see what's going on and just be part of the community. Restaurant dining outside is great, but don't limit it to just DeMeo's. Let everyone do it. Let everyone have the opportunity to have a tent set up outside so they can show the community that they're out there. There's a couple of restaurants that closed down by Stop and Shop. They're out of business because why? Maybe they couldn't be outside and be with the people and have their stuff, their restaurants outside. It's very difficult to do that. You have to be for the business, and you have to let the business thrive in town, because if they don't thrive, it's going to die on the vine.
Thank you. I'll move to Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to businesses in town and, how do we support them? I think it's, first and foremost, we just need to engage with them and try to get a better understanding of their issues. We need to encourage our residents to frequent some of these businesses and meet the people. We have great people running these businesses in town, and we need to support them every way we can. Every little bit that we support them, it's not only is it supporting them, but it's supporting their families. So, Restaurant Week is great. I agree. Winter walks, other community events, I encourage all of that. And if we could do more of that, that's great. But, we as a town should try to help these small businesses navigate, any way that we can get folks in there. And if they need resources, we need to help them navigate how to get some of those resources available to stay afloat.
Thank you, Mr. Madero.
Thank you. And I would say the thing that one of the things that we're proudest of is having formed the Economic Development Committee, which is intended to do just what Mr. Donnelly mentioned, which is to listen to our businesses, to find out what problems they're confronting and help them address the issues that challenged them during COVID. As a matter of fact, we were very proud of being able to work very closely with our restaurants and our businesses during COVID to help them exit from the pandemic, help them to accommodate to it, and provide the PPE that they needed to keep their businesses open. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that as we emerge from COVID, and as we try to improve our business environment, there's a number of things that we can do, and one of those is to develop a Shop Berkeley Heights card, where you could receive rewards for visiting, for going to your local businesses. So I think that's.
Thank you. Does anyone have a rebuttal they'd like to make? Okay, let's move to the next question. Since 2019, we've seen shared services agreements primarily with Union County and not with neighboring municipalities. Do you think there is a benefit to partnering with Union County rather than a local municipality? Please explain. And first on that question is Mr. Donnelly.
Sure, thank you for the question. I think it's difficult to keep Union County accountable. We're paying Union County a lot of taxes. We pay taxes to the town, yet we're having to pay additional hours for services. So, while there are some good and bad, I think we need to find efficiencies that keep everyone happy. Many of the folks have become valuable assets to our town at this point. Things like, John said earlier, outsourcing police, fire, EMS to Union County. Now we don't have a live person there in the middle of the night. So, all the calls go to the county. It's personally, I don't think that's the greatest. We're now paying for their services. Plus we're paying for them to expand their ability to do these services. So we're going to have to incur more costs in the long run. So how do we hold them accountable for this? At least when we're sharing services with some of our neighboring towns, we're equals. In my job, I'm doing insourcing and outsourcing decisions all the time. And it's, how does it impact the business? I'm not sure we could say the same thing with the town because, in the short term, it looks like it's great. But in the long term, I think we lose control. It's hard to keep them accountable, and there's a lot of hidden costs that come out of it and hit us.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen.
So I want to give an example of how working with Union County is something that has benefited this town. When Mayor Devaney, myself, Mr. Madero took office, the decision was made to bring in our former Public Works Director, Joe Graziano, who's the County Public Works Director, to be the towns as well, to help reorganize our Public Works Department and make it work better for the people of our town. Now, originally, the Republican members of the Township Council were very opposed to this. And they used the same arguments Mr. Donnelly has said tonight about the county and Mr. Foster has said about the county. But when I recused myself from voting on Union County issues by following the law, which I should, they had the opportunity to tear up that agreement. And instead, we've continued it. And in January, we approved that agreement with unanimous bipartisan support. So the question I would ask residents is this: if Union County is really not working for the people of Berkeley Heights, why is it this bipartisan government in the last 3 years has been finding more shared service agreements and better partnerships with Union County all the time? And we're happy to work with other towns. Our administrator, Liza, has formed a 4-county group of different towns to work together to find ideas to share services and share ideas as well. So we're going to keep doing both, and we should.
Thank you. Mr. Medeiros.
I agree with Stephen. That's probably one of our greatest accomplishments, but there are more. And then we talked about the dispatch, which, by the way, is a savings to the township. You know, one of the problems that New Jersey has is that we have over 500 townships. The reason our costs are in New Jersey, our taxes are so high in New Jersey, is because we have to fund every one of those townships. It's incumbent on us to try to find ways to share services. And I will tell you, we pay over 22% of our taxes go to the county. And if we don't recover our full benefit from that, which is foolish, we should pursue every opportunity that we have to partner with the county and realize the full value of the taxes that go to the county.
Thank you. Mr. Foster.
Well, first, I'd like to address Mr. Yellen. How do you equate the road department with public safety for fire and police and ambulance? You equate them, you're bringing somebody in to handle the road department, and you're letting the police and fire and everything go out to Union County. That's kind of funny. First, you need performance metrics to see how they're performing, when they're performing, how many jobs they're running, when they're not running, okay? 25% of our taxes go to the county on the back end. How much are going on the front end by the people that live in this town? That's pretty ridiculous, okay? Secondly, local people know the area, okay? I knew my area. I knew where I had to be. I knew how to get there. I didn't have to worry about somebody else coming into my area. Ambulance, they got Union County ambulances coming in here. These people don't know where they're going, okay? You got to have the first aid squad in Berkeley Heights handling the calls, okay? Secondly, the town I used to work for, they bailed out of Union County. Too expensive, too much on the plate. They went somewhere else, and they're getting better services for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who'd like to do a rebuttal? Mr. Yellen.
So when Berkeley Heights came to discuss this issue, our police chief, our first responders, all came to the same conclusion, that it was the right move, both from an efficiency perspective and a savings perspective, to do the shared service agreement with Union County. That was stated publicly and clearly at the council meetings. It was a recommendation, and it's why the entire council, including both Republicans and Democrats, unanimously supported this agreement. So again, I have to question whether or not people recognize that we are in fact doing the very things that Mr. Foster and Mr. Donnelly think we ought to be doing.
Thank you. Mr. Medeiros, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, it was also good for the members of that dispatch center that were employed in Berkeley Heights who had no path to, they were first of all paid very poorly, it had no career path as a result. And so having moved them to Union County Dispatch, they actually have a career path. They're better trained, they have better equipment, and they have a way to improve their own particular lives. So I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Donnelly, did you have your hand raised?
I did. You know, when I'm listening to this, and I've, you know, been to some of these town meetings where this was discussed, the one thing that sticks in my mind was that the town had to spend an enormous amount of money, and I don't know the number, but I know it was a big number, on equipment to be able to communicate with the county. So we're paying all of this money to communicate with the county, and then we're going to just save a little bit. In the end, I don't think those numbers match.
Thank you. Okay, moving to another area. What is your plan to fix the poor infrastructure in the township, such as drainage, road repair, and sidewalks? And Mr. Medeiros can answer this first.
This is again an area that we've taken a hard look and made hard decisions at as in this administration. This is not an easy answer. Our infrastructure is severely aged. It's been neglected for many, many years, and it's extremely expensive to repair. So we've left no stone unturned in pursuing solutions. We've pursued grants. We've funded for by borrowing money. And we've also looked to the federal government. We're pursuing the ARP grant, the American Recovery Project grant, that can reach over $1 million in order to help us cover this cost, but that's not enough. We also have a sewer department, wastewater treatment plant that's aged and in need of constant repair. All of that has to be funded. And again, that's why we're very proud of having put this township back on a good fiscal path so that we can borrow money at low cost, because inevitably we have to fund those repairs. Anytime that something goes down on that sewer department, I guarantee you it's very expensive to repair. And so we need to be able to borrow money at a low cost in order to repair that.
Thank you. Mr. Foster.
Well, I agree the infrastructure needs to be taken care of. I mean, if you're on a road that's recently been paved, you think, wow, this is great. And if you're not, you're thinking, well, when are they going to get to me? County roads seem to be great in town, but I drive to Governor Livingston every day and it's like driving on the moon. It's just a mess. As far as other infrastructure, yeah, stuff needs to be taken care of. There has to be grants from the federal government, from the state government, things that we can reach out and get money in order to take care of this, in order to get our infrastructure back where it is. It's on the news every day. You see it. You have to get it done. And this township committee has to get it taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen.
So one of the things that was happening before we got elected was that our town twice missed $200,000 grants for road repairs in 4 years because we didn't even send in the paperwork. We've been doing a lot better since then. We've been doing a lot more to get more roads repaved better, so that instead of having them break down just a few years, they last longer, and they are able to do more for our residents in the long run. We've also put an unprecedented investment for drainage for the very first time, $100,000 a year per year for the West Side Drainage Project. And we're also now working on getting $750,000 in different parts of the federal government's plans to provide more funding for it. But we also received $1.4 million as part of the American Recovery Act to go towards infrastructure needs. Alva and I want to use that to ensure we continue the progress on the West Side Drainage Study. Not all of our colleagues agree that that's where the money should go, but we believe this project is urgent. We believe this has to be done, and we're going to continue to focus on getting more roads repaved better, more of our infrastructure needs addressed, and more places like Fawn Circle, for example, near Woodruff, which had never been paved its entirety. We got that done, and we're going to keep getting more roads done and done right in the years to come.
Thank you. Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, sure. So honestly, I think we could be doing a much better job. While it may appear that the streets are being paved, it's often a long and drawn out process and they're poorly planned. I've seen many streets paved, but the curbing is so deteriorated that it just didn't even make sense to pave prior to fixing these aging curbs or drainage systems. So, it looks great on the surface, but, on the side, it's terrible. An option would be, if somebody has a new construction build or a gut job on their house, it'd be required to replace their curbing. Or if a neighborhood wants to band together and fund their curbing, maybe that would be the neighborhood that gets their street paved. Things like that we need to work together as a community to try to figure out, but I'd rather plan and fix it right the first time than have to spend money redoing things. So, between the drainage in town, we need to look at these areas and prioritize. So, West Side Drainage Project, whatever. These are, one by one. If we see that there's a major issue, we need to correct these issues and then move on to the next.
Thank you. Anyone want to offer a rebuttal? Mr. Medeiros?
I was just going to say that what Paul was just talking about is exactly what we're doing in terms of solving for, because the first year that we were here, our predecessors had used co-op funds to pave the roads. That means basically just taking a road in whatever condition it was and paving it over. And to Paul's point, that's not that road. Those roads don't last. As a matter of fact, we had to repave a road that they had just finished because it was done so poorly. We're engineering repaving our roads so that they last for the future.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to squeeze one more question in. Please tell us your major priorities for the township over the next 3 years. And we'll start with Mr. Foster.
All right, my priorities for the township, it needs to be diverse. We need to include people in the township. Okay, we need to come together as a township. Okay, people are going to be coming here over the next 30 years, long after I'm gone. The people are still going to be coming here and want to live in Berkeley Heights. So we want to make it more welcoming. Okay, we want to have make sure that they have what they need when they get here. Information, police, fire, road department, streets, nobody gets, their basements don't get flooded from sewers or, drainage issues and everything like that. If we don't welcome the people into town, then what's going to happen? They're going to go elsewhere. We want people to live here and go to our schools and be part of Berkeley Heights and say, I'm proud to be from Berkeley Heights. That's what we want to do.
Thank you. Mr. Donnelly.
So can you just repeat the question for me, please?
Certainly. Please tell us your major priorities for the township over the next 3 years.
Sure. So, I think number one is like all the housing that's going up around town. I think we need to just better manage some of these developers and how, they're meeting some of their agreements with the town, because things end up taking twice as long, cost twice as much. And, all of these delays cost the town money in some way, shape or form, whether it's, tax revenue coming in, it affects the way the town pays their bills. Infrastructure is obviously another area where it's a big interest. We have aging drainage pipes, water issues throughout town. We need some short and long-term plans to address these things. And then, of course, the viability of our downtown businesses. I mean, we want to make sure that, all of our storefronts are full. How do we support our tax base? We need to make downtowns a success. And even like the new downtowns that they're talking about at Canal, we need to make all of these successful so that our town.
Thank you. Mr. Medeiros.
Three things: fiscal responsibility and focus on infrastructure and improve our diversity and acceptance and welcoming of our township. From a fiscal responsibility perspective, we still have a lot of debt. We spent a lot of money on the township, on the municipal township town hall, and we still have to find a way to pay that off. We have plans, but we have to get there. And so we need to focus on our fiscal stability. Secondly, our infrastructure, as we've talked repeatedly, is at tremendous, both unable to accommodate the worsening storms and in desperate need of repair. That's going to take a lot of money. We're going to have to utilize every opportunity to solve it, not just structural. We need to look at environmental solutions. Rain gardens could be a great way to address stormwater runoff. People in their own homes who have a lot of impervious coverage should focus on that.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen.
Great question. Three things. First, I want to build on the progress that Alvaro, myself, the mayor, and our town has been making in the last 3 years. So more fiscal responsibility. We've had a lower average tax increase over the last 3 years than the previous administration's 3 years. We want to move towards having more 0% tax increases like we did last year. We also want to do more, as we said, with infrastructure investment, roads, drainage work, you name it. Secondly, I want to build on some of the stuff I've been doing with communications in the last few years. For example, Alvaro and I have talked about having a monthly open house at the new municipal complex, but also going out to the community, having coffee at different neighborhoods and listening to residents there. Something also that I'd like to do is have greater emphasis on programs for children with special needs and families of children with special needs. It's becoming more and more of a common topic and common acceptance. And I'd love to see our town do that. Just the other day, I was at Mount Carmel for a festival involving children with special needs, and they do free programs to work with our police department, first responders, how to properly work with children with special needs in critical situations. So I'd love to help us do that as well. Ultimately, it's about giving people a continued voice, keeping a bipartisan governing body, and ensuring everyone feels welcomed and included in the future of our town.
Thank you. Thank you. Any rebuttals? Okay, we will move into our final statements, the closing statements. And the first person to give his closing statement is Mr. Donnelly. And this will be 1.5 minutes each.
Sure. So thank you to the League for putting together tonight's event, and to everyone here and in our community watching tonight. Berkeley Heights is a great town, and I'm proud to have chosen it as my hometown, as I'm sure everyone here has as well. Not many towns bring together the community with events like the Winter Walk, street fairs, restaurant month, and of course the Mount Carmel Festival, which is just great for families, and a great experience for kids growing up. We have an awesome police department, fire department, rescue squad that are always engaged with our residents. I'm sure many of our towns are looking up to us. So I'm making a promise to listen to all sides when it comes to making important decisions that will impact our community. Again, it's not about politics. It's about our people and working together to make this the great place that we all want it to be. You know, having a team of skilled folks working on town council would keep us intact. And my experience and education will benefit Berkeley Heights for years to come. I'm passionate about getting things done right, on time, under budget, and I'll push hard to keep people accountable. I've demonstrated this both professionally and personally. Now I want to help this great town of Berkeley Heights. So thank you again. Please vote for John and I in November. We fill in the missing pieces to the puzzle here and offer what this town needs. So Foster and Donnelly, column B, looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Foster.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everybody for allowing me to participate in tonight's debate, especially League of Women Voters. You've done a great service to the community here. My passion for community service has been part of my entire life. This includes my 28-year career in law enforcement, which gave me the skills to listen, understand an issue and viewpoints before reacting to it. Also, my decade-long volunteerism right here in Berkeley Heights, where many of you know he's Coach John from my years of coaching, my 3 kids in the PAL and the Berkeley Heights Youth Soccer Club. Okay, it makes me active in the town, and I'm active in our schools, where I've been on the PTOs, and I'm at Mary Kay, Thomas P. Hughes, Columbia Middle School, Governor Livingston, now part of the Band Parents Association. All great organizations and great people that are involved in them. I've met so many different people from all walks of life that have been part of these associations. Okay, now I want to take my volunteerism to the next level, go to the town council. Over the last many months, I've connected with many of the neighbors in town, and I've heard their diverse concerns, and I'm here to step up. I want only the best for Berkeley Heights and to ensure we make it a place that everyone can call home for generations to come. And remember, Foster Donnelly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to Mr. Medeiros.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters again for hosting us this evening. I also want to thank my fellow candidates for participating and also for being candidates for office in Berkeley Heights. I'm a strong believer in volunteerism and encourage all residents in our great township to volunteer their time and service to the township, whether that be through elected office, appointment to a committee, or service as a member of the many volunteer organizations across the township. Your participation helps and ensures you are engaged in our community. One of the things that makes Berkeley Heights such a great town and serves to break down what divides us is the extent to which many of us volunteer. That is why we chose our campaign motto, Better Together. Berkeley Heights can indeed be better, and when our neighbors volunteer to help each other in any of a myriad of ways that they can, we all work together toward a common goal, which is the betterment of our community. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. I strongly encourage everyone here and throughout town to vote. Election day is November 2nd, but you can vote before that by choosing to obtain a vote by mail ballot through the Union County Clerk's office, online or in person, or you can vote early at the New Providence Senior Center starting October 23rd. Between now and Election Day, I will continue to knock on doors throughout the township. This is my 3rd campaign, and each time I've run for office, my favorite part is canvassing and meeting residents. I hope I will get a chance to meet you if I haven't already. Otherwise, please take into consideration what you heard tonight when you vote. Elections have consequences, and I very much believe Stephen and I are the right choice to helping Berkeley Heights be better together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen.
Thank you to everyone who has and will be listening to this debate on Facebook, and to the League for hosting tonight as well. I have a quote on my business card, and it describes my approach to public service in a nutshell. I don't think politics has anything to do with left, right, or center. It has to do with trying to do right by people. For 3 years now, you and I have had an administration which has worked hard to do right by Berkeley Heights. I believe that our leaders should strive to do right by you, even if we don't always get it right, rather than fold our arms and turn our heads away in indifference to our needs. I believe that democracy isn't just a noun, but a verb, as it's been said elsewhere, that good government requires action from citizens as well as the leaders they elect. And that philosophy has guided my service to my hometown. a town my family's lived in for over half a century, and always will. I think tonight's debate has shown you why Alvaro and I are the right choice to keep moving our community forward. We're proud of what we've done. We're excited to do more in the next 3 years. So I ask respectfully that you give us that opportunity by voting to re-elect us either on November 2nd or by voting early, as Alvaro said, at the New Providence Senior Center starting October 23rd, or by voting by mail. Please vote column A, Yellen and Maderos for Township Council, because Berkeley Heights is better together. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you. Thanks to the candidates, to our moderator, Dr. Murphy, to our technical director and other league volunteers. Thank you to the audience for attending and being active participants in the democratic process. Remember to make your vote count, and voting has various ways of looking at this year. First of all, the vote by mail ballots will be, they'll be mailed out as of September 18th. So if you are somebody who gets an automatic mail-in ballot, you can start expecting that at that time. There's also early voting, which begins on October 23rd. There are 7 locations within Union County. I know people have mentioned the senior center at DeCorzo in New Providence. They're not sure whether that's going to happen because of the storm damage, but they will be listed on Union County votes. And you don't have to go to New Providence. You can go to any of the 7 locations throughout Union County. And of course, on November 2nd, you can go to your normal, regular voting place and cast your ballot in person at that time as well. I want to remind people that the forum is available for viewing on the LWV BHNPS YouTube channel, as well as the LWVBHNPS.org website. We encourage you to share the link and remind you that the recording can only be shared in its entirety. And we'd like to also mention about the fact that this is a very important election for the state of New Jersey, besides for Berkeley Heights. Not only are we voting for governor, but we also will be voting for our state senator in the 21st legislative district, our 2 state assembly people in the 21st legislative district, our Union County commissioners, of course, the local Berkeley Heights Township Council candidates, and also the Board of Education here in Berkeley Heights, and the League of Women Voters, along with Tap Into, is planning to have a forum for the Board of Education on October 7th, and more information will be forthcoming on that. There are also 2 public questions on the ballot this year. The first one deals with the fact that wagering has been prohibited by the Constitution. You can't wager on sports teams or athletic events happening in New Jersey or with New Jersey teams. This public question will allow that to happen, that people will be allowed to bet on sports, at college sports or athletic events that take place in New Jersey, as well as events in which a team from New Jersey colleges participate. Public question number 2 that is on the ballot deals with games of chance. Currently, only veterans and senior citizen groups may use net proceeds from the games of chance to support their groups. Other groups do use raffles and bingo, but they have to have a specific reason or a specific goal for that money. This public question will allow all groups to conduct bingo, raffle, and other games of chance and use the proceeds to support their operating budget as well. So again, thank you very much for attending this evening, and don't forget to vote.
Everybody, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.